It's the 2022 Frisco Town Council election, and the candidates for Town Council, 3 open seats. There are 7 candidates here tonight, and I will very briefly go over some of the general election information. The candidates will be elected to 4-year terms. Town of Frisco utilizes the council manager form of government. That means the council determines policies, enacts local legislation, adopts budgets, and appoints the town manager, who in turn executes the laws and administers the town government. The town clerk's office operates under the provisions of the Frisco Town Charter and the Colorado Municipal Election Code. So our candidates tonight, I will do a short bio on all the candidates. We'll go from the left around to me. So we'll start off with Andy Held. Andy has lived in Frisco since 1987. He is the owner of Held Joinery. And some of his comments, he is also an incumbent, right, Andy? You've been on town council since, 2018, is that correct?
2 years.
2020 then, correct. And the Planning Commission since 2018. Some of Andy's comments: he's a resident of Frisco for 35 years, a passionate, active citizen and business owner. He wants to champion the issues that matter most: housing, short-term rentals, infrastructure, sustainable smart design. Support the arts, remain a diligent force to protect our town from wildfire. And he says if the good people of Frisco see fit to elect him, it would be his honor to fervently serve their needs. Moving down to the next candidate, Dave Rowling. Dave Rowling has lived in Frisco since 2015. He has over 25 years of experience in technology companies. Some of his comments include, while affordable workforce housing is a huge challenge, workers also need childcare, safety, and family-friendly activities. Our business community is the heart of our economy. We should invest in helping them grow while cultivating new ones. Frisco and Summit County in general needs independent and/or assisted living for our seniors. Residents should be part of any discussion about parking, fees at the marina, or the Peninsula Rec area. Frisco residents also deserve preferential treatment like discounts, since they help pay taxes for these facilities. John Hammond is next. John Hammond has lived in Frisco since 2019. He includes 2 present positions: automation controls engineer at Siemens, also the owner of Jack of All Trades Handyman. John's comments: it is my goal to bring a fresh perspective to the Frisco Town Council as we address the issues facing the town. I believe my background in engineering, small business ownership, corporate management, advanced wastewater treatment, retail, and hospitality gives me broad insight into the problems that do face our community. Lisa Holenko has lived in Frisco since 2012. Lisa is the owner of Next Page Books in Nosh. And some of her comments include she's lived and worked in Frisco for 10 years, owning a small business for over 5. She feels strongly about giving back to the community and to be part of Frisco's future. Not just for tourists, but most importantly for the citizens. As a business owner, she has too been negatively impacted from the affordable housing crisis, with her employees having a very difficult time finding homes. She goes on to say, I've felt the positive and negative impact of tourism, but it is my nature to embrace change and to work with others to create positive results. During my time as a high school English teacher, I learned to work successfully on committees, listen to coworkers, administrators, students, and parents to find solutions. As a council member, my focus will be to make sure the perspective of locals is always taken into consideration as we continue to grow. James Walsh. James has lived in Frisco since 2017. His work experience includes property manager for the Summit Resort Group in Summit County. Also, engaged in civic activities, spearheading the Frisco Housing Petition, going door to door listening to residents and their opinions on housing while collecting signatures. Some of the comments from James include, my goal is to implement and execute the will of Frisco's residents while bringing transparency to the process. Not every situation will have a clear consensus, but when one exists, council's job is not to question the will of the people. In my opinion, Main Street Promenade is a perfect example of council going against the will of the people. I intend to root my decision-making and direct feedback from local residents. Joe Buck Phillips has lived in Frisco since 2019. Prior experience includes former Aviation Safety Committee member, retail manager, chef, food and beverage manager. He is a volunteer with Advocates for Victims of Domestic Assault. And some of his comments include, after my first winter in Summit County, I decided Frisco was where I wanted to call home. The mission statement for this town is to preserve a family-oriented and economically vibrant community that encourages citizen involvement. And that's my driving force for being here tonight. I know what it's like to make a life in Frisco, the joy and excitement that brings, as well as the challenges. I live in workforce housing neighborhood and am an employee of local businesses. I spend a good amount of time walking my dog on the local paths and trails in and around town. My friends, neighbors, co-workers all cherish this incredible place, but many are not so lucky to find good housing in order to make that long-term commitment to live here. And I see the businesses where I work and how difficult it is for employees who are vital to our economy. Elizabeth Adrian has lived in Frisco since 1995. Her experience includes small business owner and commercial property owner, Town of Frisco Historical Park and Museum, Town of Frisco Information Center. Civic engagement includes Special Education Partnership Committee, Make Frisco Art Collective, Women's Prison Book Art Project. Some of her comments: as a resident for 26 years, I would love to be part of the collaborative group that makes up Frisco's Town Council. Our current top issues of workforce housing, staffing shortages, childcare, and small businesses will need attention from people with longevity in the Frisco community. Effective communities embrace conflict and diversity by working through differences of opinion and making space for civil discourse and the learning that occurs from appreciating multiple points of view. That wraps up the short bios for our candidates. Let's move on. Let's get this going. Our first question is the obvious question tonight, folks. And this one, I will start with Andy. Andy?
Yes, sir.
And this will be the question everyone will get. We will all have the same questions, all candidates. Why are you running for the Frisco Town Council? You have 2 minutes, sir.
Thank you. Hello. Thanks for coming. I am running for re-election because it is absolutely my civic duty to represent the long-term local, the business owner here in Frisco. And you know, for a long time I've sat on the sidelines. We tried to get involved in many different ways, and I really just felt that to have a seat at the table and to have that point of view come across, I needed to be there. And I don't really have a choice. This is my mission. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. David, same question. Why are you running for Frisco Town Council?
So my answer is very simple. I have a passion to serve this community from the council. Some people have passion of golf, skiing, painting, whatever. For some strange reason, I have a passion to serve the community from the council. My professional career has equipped me with a lot of the skills necessary to be successful in the council. A lot of collaboration, consensus building, communications, things like that. And I've done my homework. I've attended every council meeting in person when the chamber's open for 2 years. Read every single packet that's handed out to the council. I've learned things that I didn't even know were issues. Dock Island is a good example of it. So just a passion to serve Frisco and to keep it the community that it is. Thank you.
Thank you, David. John, why are you running for Town Council?
Well, thank you very much. Thanks for coming out, everybody. I'm like many of you. I moved here 2 years ago, and I fell in love with the place. When you live the American dream, it's part of your responsibility to give back. So I didn't feel like I had a choice. I want to be a part of the community. I want to affect change in a positive way. I want to solve problems that face every one of us. And the best way to do that is get directly involved. You know, it's easy to sit on the sidelines, make comments. I do the same around the dinner table, telling everybody what I would do if I was in charge. Well, now there's an opportunity. And the biggest problem I think we face with Frisco is how do you make a dream better? The problems we face are, relatively insignificant compared to the rest of the world. But I think there are changes that can be made. We can improve it, and we can keep growth in check and make sure that we keep that lifestyle that we all love. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Lisa, why are you running for town council in Frisco?
Thank you all for participating in this process. The town of Frisco, both the government and the people who live here, saved my business over the last 2 years. They literally helped us to survive, and I feel passionate about giving back to that community and to helping to keep this community alive and growing, and the way that the small town that it has been, to keep that community feel here. I feel like we're in a pivotal moment right now, and there are big decisions to be made about where the future of this town goes, and I feel obligated and grateful, so incredibly grateful to this town for giving me so much, that I want to be a part of helping it to move forward in a positive way. And I think that the people and the government that helped to save my business, the people in the government are who need to also help determine where it goes in the future. And we need to do that together. And so that is why I am running, and I hope that you support me in doing that.
Thank you, Lisa. James, why are you running for Frisco Town Council?
I want to implement and execute the will of Frisco's residents. While circulating the Frisco housing petition this summer, council members spoke with me candidly, and multiple council members told me to my face that it is not they're not obligated to implement the will of the people. They've been elected to do as they see fit and entrusted to do as they see fit, regardless of what the public thinks on an issue. I fundamentally disagree. We don't have voting districts. I think when there's a consensus majority, it's council's duty to implement the will of the residents. Also, the best chance we have at coming up with successful solutions is the collective consciousness of 3,000 people. When I went door to door for 80 hours, the one thing I realized is most people that live in this town are really smart, really nice, and everyone has good ideas. So I want to see everyone get a voice. I used to think that the challenge of living in Frisco was the duration of these long winters. I've come to believe now that the biggest challenge is the lack of people that live here full time. With the volume of tourism that turns over on top of that, it's sometimes difficult to find meaningful relationships and connect. And so I decided after doing the housing petition to lean into the civic activity. I've met so many people and learned so much. It's been a really great way to form meaningful relationships with people in the community.
Thank you, James. Joe, why are you running for Frisco Town Council?
The biggest thing for... Is that working? Cool. The biggest thing for me is, I grew up in a city of 4 million people. And coming to Frisco, is a big culture shock for me. Walking to the grocery store, being greeted by people I didn't know, having strangers smile at me. And it made me realize that Frisco is a place that I've been seeking to be my entire life. And, I've been lucky enough to come here and stay here. But, that's a reality that a lot of people have not been able to achieve. So much like everyone else up here, I want to, move forward with a lot of the workforce housing initiatives and work towards finding feasible and affordable childcare to make, the dream of coming to Frisco and staying more of a reality. And, being in a small town, I feel like it's important to be involved and engaged with everything that goes on around here. And, talking to council members, talking to the current mayor, the former mayor, I feel like, it's the best thing that we can do in order to help Frisco as a town grow and thrive and, you know, remain a spot that we all want to be in and we want to grow old in.
Thank you, Joe. And finally, Elizabeth. Elizabeth, why are you running for Frisco Town Council?
I am running for Frisco Town Council because I've spent the majority of my adult life, well, all of my adult life, living in Frisco, working and living on Main Street, working for small businesses. Now I have my own small business, and I'm deeply connected to the service industry, to all of the workforce. I know people everywhere, and I hear all the things that they talk about and that they care about. And, you know, it's kind of one of those things where it's like, why don't I try out for town council? Because I can take all of this information and all these voices and all these thoughts and cares and concerns, worries, and bring them into town hall and use what I know about my community to hopefully help develop and guide some sort of future, you know, vision and ideas for the town of Frisco that include everyone, and that it makes it a place that everyone can potentially succeed in depending on where they want to go with their life. But I feel like I'm really connected to a lot of people, business owners, and it's a cool opportunity to maybe bring a lot of their voices and thoughts to town hall. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. As we move on to the second question, we're going to start with David Rowling, and then as each subsequent question, we'll start with a different person. David, what is the biggest challenge the town faces in your view, and how would you address that challenge if elected?
So this one's an easy one. It's workers. And having a reasonable cost of living to be able to live here and work here. That's a big challenge. A piece of that is workforce housing, affordable workforce housing, but it doesn't stop there. As some of my colleagues have mentioned, childcare. If you read the paper recently, we're 600 positions short, or staff to support 600 additional students or early childhood care. So we have that. We have, if you followed, we have to provide clean drinking water. We have to provide all the normal services we take for granted. Public safety is a good example of it, but there's a lot of the town services. And then lastly, I would say a recreational environment. So the path systems, the parks, the peninsula, the marina. So to answer the portion about what I would do is, one, continue with the efforts we have in subsidizing workforce housing while we pursue the development on Galena, the development on Granite, pursuit of Lake Hill and others. Let's see what else I had, a couple others. And then partnerships like we're doing with BREC as it relates to childcare. Anything we can do as a broader community can help. And so that's how I'd answer the question.
Thank you very much, David. And John, same question. What is the biggest challenge that the town faces in your view, and how would you address that if elected?
This one came to me pretty easy after I thought about it and read about the challenges for the town of Frisco, and that is who we hire as town manager. All of the problems we face have been here for quite some time, many of them. But when I look at my role as town council member and what decisions we're making over the next year, the biggest decision we're going to make is for town manager. That is the person that drives the bus around here. And we have an exceptional town of workers. The ability that they have to cover and do the job that they do without a current town manager is incredible to me. How would I handle dealing with this issue? I take very seriously the role. We're making a decision for town manager. It's going to affect this town for a long time. If we go through the vetting process properly, and we really recruit the best talent we could possibly find, because we're replacing Nancy, who is a tough person to replace. We can make it happen, but I think the town council needs to focus on this decision more in this next year than any other decision. Thank you.
Thank you, John. And Lisa, what is the biggest challenge, according to you, that the town faces, and how would you address that if elected?
So first, I'm going to apologize that I get nervous and I forget what I'm going to say, so I wrote everything down, so please forgive me for that. Affordable housing is definitely the number one priority to me as a business owner and just as a citizen here. I've seen the effects of the lack of affordable housing, and we're going to lose our workforce. And if we lose our workforce, we're going to lose our tourists also. And so we have to have affordable housing for our workers, to keep them, to keep our economy alive and to keep our community vibrant, but also just to be good human beings and to have housing for the people who want to live here. And we have a lot of long-term goals that are already set in motion, and that's great, but I think we need some really short-term goals. We need incentives for people who are short-term renting right now, and we need to really let them know what those options are, and we need to get that word out to them, because this is an immediate problem. I'm experiencing the lack of workers right now in my business. We're making changes as we speak to our business that are a result of losing workers to this affordable housing issue. And so I think that is our main issue, and I hope that we can, no matter who gets elected, that we can come up with some pretty quick solutions to keep our workers and keep our citizens housed.
Thank you, Lisa. And moving on to James, what is the biggest challenge the town faces in your eyes, and how would you address that if elected?
I think the biggest challenge is businesses having trouble getting employees, which is directly tied into affordable housing. I believe there is a line between subsidizing a second home or an investment property and operating a commercial enterprise. I don't know exactly where that line is, and I believe the community deserves to be the people that draw that line. We should be offering a range of dynamic solutions that are flexible, that accommodate a variety of ownership scenarios, and putting them on the ballot for people to vote on directly, and then implementing the will of the people. I know council's intentions are good, but there's no way that the collective thought of 6 or 7 people can rival the consciousness of 3,000 people total. And furthermore, it seems like when council does something, it doesn't resolve people arguing. People say, oh, council should have done this, or they shouldn't have done that, and the debate continues. If we put solutions on the ballot for people to vote on directly, it allows our community to have meaningful conversations leading up to a moment where we all get to vote, we all get to have our voice heard, and then that's the end. That's it. That's the end of it. We make a decision as a community, the council, the town manager, we implement the decision of the people, and that's the new rules, and we can quit arguing about it and move forward towards working on other important issues like childcare, like public transportation, like mental health services, like schools. And I want to see the people draw that line as to where operating a commercial enterprise starts.
Thank you, James. And Joe, what is the biggest challenge the town faces, and how would you address it if elected?
So for me, the biggest challenge is bolstering the working class. And, it's something that, we've all spoken on time and time again. Every person up here who owns a business, myself as a manager, I see this, I deal with it every day. Tourists who come here, are upset that they have to wait. Owners are overworked, employees are overworked. And, the biggest thing is moving forward with the affordable housing initiatives. And, it's at this point, it kind of feels like being a dead horse because we've all said something similar. But, I think it goes to show just how important, pushing these initiatives are and getting these initiatives off the ground. Like, I've had plenty of friends who've come here and like, oh, well, I would love to stay, but I can't. Most recently, someone just told me the place that they just moved into, the owner's selling it. Second time in 6 months they've had to deal with this. And if they can't find a place, where do they go? They leave. And that's one more, pivotal individual that we need to keep this community alive that's now gone. And, if we don't do something and we're not proactive, then we're going to be reactive and we're going to be behind the ball.
Thank you, Joe. Elizabeth, what is the biggest challenge the town faces, and how would you address that if elected?
I guess my answer would almost be in two parts. Like everybody said, housing. I'm not even going to go as far as saying affordable housing. I would just say any type of rental. If there's not a lot of rentals out there despite the price. Like if people could even figure out, like if there were places that people could actually possibly get into, like as a business owner, there's probably things that I could do to help them get into a place. But there's so little rentals that you skip the affordability part at this point. Like just finding anything is like a miracle these days. And then the other part, the biggest challenge I would say, and I guess this is just, I don't know, maybe it's a weird opinion, but I see kind of, and maybe it's just me, but a disconnect between different parts of our community. We have this younger part, we have retired people, we have, parents, we have, there's disability community, there's all these different parts of our community, and I wish there was a way that we could all potentially intermingle more often and maybe share more ideas, because I feel like if we all know what each other's thinking, we all have a better option or possibility of forming, long view, long-term decisions for our community. But if we're all just thinking our own things, we just keep doing the same things, I guess. Thanks.
Thank you, Elizabeth. And finally, coming full circle back to Andy, what is the biggest challenge the town faces, and how would you address it if reelected?
Thank you. Everybody is right here, right? All of these issues matter, and they matter most. There are just a couple things I would say. First, my first priority as far as the biggest threat to our town, I believe, is wildfire. And we're already working on a comprehensive plan with Summit County, with the Forest Service, with other jurisdictions in order to mitigate and revegetate what's now being called Frisco's backyard. That's the first thing, and that's a threat, right? Challenge, I would say, having to do with all of these things is probably funding, right? So in order to pay for affordable housing, and in order to pay for, say, transportation or any of this, our budget is not that large if you compare it to the rest of Summit County or the other towns. There's only so much money to go around. There's a lot to be done with the budget that's there. And so the way I see it is in the future, as we're attempting to build our way out of this housing crisis, it's really, how are we going to afford it? That money is not just going to come out of our general fund. And so to that end, this year, the council has hired a federal lobbyist. And we're hoping to be able to write some grants and get some money to fund all of these things: infrastructure, childcare, housing, wildfire, recreation, right? All of this needs extra funding. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. And we have 2 questions in the books. Thank you, audience, for being here and also being part of this great process. As we move on to the 3rd question, we're going to start with John on this one. John, do you see any opportunities for improving quality core services What, if any, infrastructure issues do you believe will need to be addressed in the near future?
When I first moved here, one of the things that disappointed me most in being a new resident is the idea of the postcard world, in a snow globe. And the problem of trash on the streets bothered me. Bothered me to the point where I would volunteer my own time around my neighborhood just cleaning it up because it became that frustrating. It's not anyone's fault specifically why we have trash on the streets. It's because we have volume of people. The wind blows, the bag goes, and then it ends up in the marsh where no one can go and get it. I'd like to start with the basics. Let's have the cleanest town we could possibly have. We can do this without spending a lot of money. There are a lot of people here locally that would love to volunteer to be a part of an ambassador program, to walk the streets, to guide people. So the infrastructure I think would be impressive would be people infrastructure. I mean, I know there's several people that live here, retired here, would love to guide people coming through, point them in the right direction, give them a little bit of etiquette training on how to, walk the trails. Don't leave poopy bags laying around. If I see another poopy bag, I think I'm going to go bonkers. If we don't have enough money in our budget to be able to afford to keep this place immaculate, then we're doing something wrong. Basic infrastructure, clean place to live, and get the community involved. That human infrastructure is what we're missing. I mean, we've got the buses, we've got public transit, we've got the roads taken care of. We can do a better job in all these areas, but I just don't see the participation in the community coming out and making this place the wonderful place it is. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Lisa, same question. Do you see any opportunities for improving quality core services? What, if any, infrastructure issues do you believe will need to be addressed in the near future?
Sorry. These 2 minutes go really fast. So obviously land is at a premium in Summit County, but I feel very strongly that we need to address the parking issue in Frisco. We need to allocate some land somewhere for some kind of parking facility. The side roads and the alleys are getting overcrowded. Customers, residents, employees, everybody getting frustrated because there's no place to park. And I think that it would enhance our whole, we're all here to exercise and to get outside and to do our thing, right? Maybe you need to park in a lot and walk a little bit to get to where you want to go. I don't think that's such a bad thing. I don't want to see visitors stop coming because they are frustrated that there's no place to park when they get here and they're driving around the block and around the block and around the block looking for some place. One other thing, if hopefully I have time, that I think needs some attention is the addition of some bike paths. I sit in my business and I look at, in the summer, families renting bikes and riding their bikes behind parked cars on Main Street. This is obviously pre-2020. And I see, and I wait for a tragedy to happen, that a parked car is going to back up into them. And obviously the promenade helped a little bit with that, but only within the promenade. And I think we need another solution to get families off of Main Street, away from riding right behind parked cars before something happens.
Thank you very much, Lisa. James, do you see any opportunities for improving quality core services? What, if any, infrastructure issues do you believe will need to be addressed in the near future?
I'd like to see us expand public transportation. I disagree with John. We don't have a localized system of public transportation. Summit County Stage is a great amenity on the county level, although I almost wasn't let on the bus to get here today because they cut the bus schedule in half and it was full with people coming back from the mountain. We used to have a thing called the Frisco Flyer, which was basically a van that would drive around and bring you where you needed to go. We got rid of it because it wasn't profitable. I think that's the kind of thing we should be paying for. I agree with Lisa. We need to deal with parking. My sort of dream vision for public transportation infrastructure we could add would be a parking garage all the way at the end of Main Street next to the freeway, and then a streetcar or a trolley type car that does a single route of going down Main Street and cutting over to the transit station. No schedule, just makes that L. You know it's coming by every 15 minutes. That combined with some sort of local mechanism to get people, say, from mountainside condos to Main Street so that they don't have to drive their car. While circulating the Frisco housing petition and listening to people's feedback, one thing became clear is that there's never going to be less people coming to Summit County, coming to Frisco. I'm inclined to believe or agree with the article that came out in the Summit Daily where the county hired an outside consulting firm, and their analysis was the fabric of the community has changed forever, and it's not going back. So the best thing we can do to maintain livability for our residents going forward is incentivize people to get around in a way where they're not using their cars. That's it. This is something that I think doesn't resonate with people, but in 20 years we'll be looking back saying we should have taken care of this, started working on this infrastructure 20 years ago. So I'd like to start it now.
Thank you, James. Joe, same question. Do you see any opportunities for improving quality core services? What, if any, infrastructure issues do you believe will need to be addressed in the near future?
So much like everyone else up here, I think that parking and promoting public transportation kind of go hand in hand. Offering off-site parking, bringing back the Frisco Flyer, and other forms of, micro ride sharing, outside of Uber and, those major companies, I think really promotes people to get out and walk and, leave their vehicles where they are. And, like for myself during the summer, living in the Peak One neighborhood, having vehicles parked up and down our road to the point where people can't get out of their driveways because there are vehicles blocking them in. Those people are out on the trails, they're out enjoying themselves, but now, my neighbor's potentially going to be late to work because, he can't get out of his own driveway. So I think, looking into parking structures where people can leave their vehicles for the day and know that, it's going to be fine, everything is going to be there when they get back is, important. And, the public transportation, prior to moving to Frisco proper, catching the bus around the county was viable before, but with the lack of drivers, the schedule, being cut in half, it becomes more and more difficult to the point where people, to a certain extent, feel dissuaded from coming into town, which I think is also hurting, businesses here. So I think promoting public transportation and providing some sort of off-site parking is, are both really important.
Thank you, Joe. Elizabeth? Do you see any opportunities for improving quality core services? What, if any, infrastructure issues do you believe will need to be addressed in the near future?
I agree with everyone about the parking. I like the idea of the parking garage. I was thinking about the Frisco Flyer. Those are two really important things. Like I always try to suggest to people to park at the transfer center and just take the Summit Stage to Main Street. I'm like, just leave your car, But more creative solutions would be super helpful. In all of the years I've lived in Frisco, man, I just gotta say, I remember when the marina was like a dirt road. I really feel like all of the town councils and the people working all these years have really done a beautiful job on our streets. And I know there's more cool stuff coming, and I'm just so grateful because we have, the alleys are nice. Everything has really come so far. I just remember the marina being like a dirt road, and you're like, where am I going, I would like to see things out at the adventure park. We should have a free basketball court. I've been saying it for years, a place where families can go and just shoot some hoops. Not everyone here wants to go on a mountain bike ride that day. Basketball court, a really nice volleyball court. I've been playing at Walter Byron for so long, and it's a hazard. Your ball goes in the pond, it goes down the river, the court's lopsided, whatever, I'll take what I can get. I love it. But, you know, for the adventure park, we could have some free services out, or free things to do, you know? Yeah, and then, I don't know, maybe more senior mobility around the town. Like the Summit Stage has their mobility program, but it would be cool to be able to get out more often and not rely on that schedule. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Andy, do you see any opportunities for improving quality core services? What, if any, infrastructure issues do you believe will need to be addressed in the near future?
Everything applies. It's all comprehensive. You know, with the influx of people that we have and we're going to have, we just have to plan for dealing with them. You know, a number of things in particular, say Lake Hill. If we did Lake Hill, we're going to improve the sewer system and our water, right? We're going to update our water department. You know, some of the things I would like to see personally, I'd like to see Granite and Galena get built out with bikeways, parking, and everything else in there for better connectivity. I'd love to see better connectivity over towards the marina, so maybe a bridge or a tunnel to get across Summit Boulevard. I think Summit Boulevard's a key connection. We get 30,000 cars a day through there, driving through, and many of our middle school kids get off of the bus across the street, and then they walk across this highway that sees 30,000 cars, you know, and trucks. And so we need a way to get them over there. So better connectivity throughout is going to include transportation options, the Frisco Flyer, more bike access, more walking access. You know, the GAP project just got done, and we actually have sidewalks, you know, going all the way to the senior center there. And so it all matters. It's all part of it, and it all goes in. But I'd say those are a few of the projects I'd like to see done.
Thank you, Andy. And finally, David, do you see any opportunities for improving quality core services? What, if any, infrastructure issues do you believe will need to be addressed in the near future?
So I'm going to echo what everybody else says, which is parking. We've all experienced it. I think we need to execute on the complete streets plan. It was presented to council, the consultants, beginning of February. Beautiful, builds out Granite and Galena as pedestrian and biking friendly, expanding beyond the core. There's another area that hasn't been mentioned. We want to increase full-time residents here. One of the things that we can do to do that and support our businesses is invest in broadband, high-speed internet. More people can work remote, so why not work here, dine here, shop here, and work remote? And begin to reclaim some of the culture that's been lost to short-term renting, where people say, I have that place, I can work there. And then our businesses can make use of that infrastructure and grow their businesses beyond Main Street to the state, to the nation, to the globe. And so it's another area of infrastructure we often don't think about, but it enables a lot of the things we want to accomplish in this town, which is increasing full-time residents and regain some culture. Thank you.
Thank you, David. We're moving on to the fourth question. If the town received a $5 million grant and you could decide on how to use it, what would you do with it and why? Lisa, this will be your start.
Sorry. So obviously hypothetical, right? Because nobody's giving us a $5 million grant and saying do whatever you want with it. But I would use it for childcare. I think that we need another facility or an expanded facility for childcare. I think that our families that are here are under way too much stress and pressure, waiting on these long lists of to get their kids into a decent childcare facility, and that affects everything. That affects our whole community, right? And sorry, I'm gonna quote Gandhi. Gandhi said that the true measure of any society can be found in how it treats its most vulnerable. And our children are the most vulnerable in our society. And if we're not taking care of them, we're not taking care of our society. They need a safe place to go. The parents should not have to be up at night wondering how they're going to get to work the next day, when their child's going to get into daycare. We should have sufficient facilities for the number of children that we have in this society.
Thank you, Lisa. James, if the town received a $5 million grant and you could decide how to use it, what would you do with it and why?
I would bring it to the ballot box to let the residents decide how to handle it. Try to do some kind of survey to come up with 3 or 4 good ideas. The ones that come to me that seem like good ideas to me are public transportation infrastructure, mental health services. We're severely lacking in mental health services. Child care is, and as Lisa was saying, I've heard echoed a lot. And a fourth option I think seems pretty good is just give everybody $1,600. We got 3,000 people. Give everybody their share of the $5 million. Let that money circulate back into the community the best way they see fit to spend it. But the core principle being, figure out what the most popular ideas are within the community, put it on the ballot box, let the people decide, and then implement their will.
Thank you, James. Joe, if the town received a $5 million grant and you could decide how to use it, what would you do with it and why?
With the $5 million, I would use that $5 million as leverage for federal funding. At the very least, try to get federal funding to match that $5 million. I think right now, the average price per square foot to build anything is about $450 to $500. And average, for example, if you built a 500 square foot unit with that would be $250,000. That would be 20 units, would be $5 million. If you were able to get federal funding to match that, now you're looking, instead of 20 units, you're looking at 40 to 60 to 100 units. And, that's just an example. You could use that, right now they're talking about renovating the police department. That's $450 a square foot. This money could be used towards further building up the infrastructure and renovating buildings that need, the money and really reinvesting it into the town, so that we can take that money and use it towards what we really need to.
Very good. Thank you, Joe. And Elizabeth, if the town received a $5 million grant and you were the one that could decide how to use it, what would you do with it and why?
Oh, I have too many answers, I think, but definitely try to purchase some housing and create workforce rentals, maybe even for seasonal workers. I also think, I don't know, it's crazy, but scrapping town hall and rebuilding it in a better way. There's a lot of land there. You could rebuild the police department, make it more efficient flow for offices and all of the things that happen, and then maybe add in a child care facility. Maybe it might not have a ton of space for a ton of kids, but maybe town hall employees could at least bring their kids to work with them, put them in a daycare that's right on site, and maybe build a parking structure underneath, or do something with that land and redo town hall, because it's a weird building, just redo it. And maybe offer some sort of housing vouchers or subsidies to single parents who, there's a lot of people I know are divorced, They pay double rent in the county just to be with their kids. So maybe we could figure out some sort of voucher program or start pulling out individuals out of our community that could actually use a little rental assistance or something like that if they're living and working in Frisco. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Andy, if the town received a $5 million grant and you were the one that could decide how to use it, what would you do with it and why?
Well, first off, that is absolutely not how it works. You can't get grants without knowing exactly what you're asking for and for what, right? $5 million in grants doesn't actually go that far. So that's another one. You know, we could easily just plug $5 million into one of the housing projects that we've got going to get out of the ground. And then we would end up with, 12 to 20 units depending on. So that would probably be, if I were just going to throw $5 million at something, it would probably be building workforce housing, affordable housing. If we are getting grants to support that in the future, then I would say a few things that are probably not on the docket at this point, where it would be transportation, bring back or do it more effectively than the Frisco Flyer. Maybe build the bridge across the Summit Boulevard. That right there would probably take up $5 million. That's how it is. $5 million just does not go very far, and we need a lot more than that.
Thank you, Andy. David, if the town received a $5 million grant and you could decide how to use it, what would you do with it and why?
So I view this a little bit different than some of the others. I considered this from it's kind of a surprise, unexpected, $5 million. So rather than augment some of the programs we have underway, whether it's workforce housing, some of the others, I think we need to look at some areas that we aren't serving adequately now. Number one on my list is senior housing options. I wanted to move my father-in-law here. He needs extra care. He needed senior living, not even as high as assisted living, just senior living. There is no facility in Frisco. There is no facility in Summit. I think the closest one is 45 minutes away in Eagle. People born here, live here, love it here, and when they need a little extra care, we have nothing. Anything left over, I'd go to the other vulnerable community that you mentioned, love the quote, and that is childcare as well. The other things, there are work underway. Those are going to happen. Whether it's workforce housing, we have several developments at different stages. Bit of transportation, we can augment what the county does. But there are areas that we're not serving today that are pertinent to everybody, whether it's pertinent to you today or in the future. That's where I would put this surprise funding. Thank you.
Thank you very much, David. And finally, John, if the town received a $5 million grant, you could decide how to use it. What would you do with it and why?
I always love the lottery ticket theory. I wake up tomorrow and win $5 million. What do I do with it? It's hard to argue what James mentioned of just give it back to the people. It's their money, give it back to them. But not doing that, I'd say we need to invest in public transportation. The key to getting out of the workforce housing issue is not going to be solved by Frisco. It's going to be solved by Summit County, Eagle County, Park County. We've got to include everybody. Everybody's suffering from the same problem. If we improve our infrastructure and public transportation, we can send the shuttle over the mountain to Fairplay 3, 4, 5 times a day. We could build workforce housing at a cheaper cost in those areas where there's space to do it. We're landlocked here. Everything is very valuable. And why would you want to lose the value in the property that you have in your community and sacrifice that for, low-income workforce housing? I think we use the resources of the surrounding communities and we shore up our public transportation system to accommodate the flow and the volume of the people that need to come in here. And that's what I would do with the $5 million.
Thank you very much, John. That takes care of our first 4 questions. We're going to move on to residents and audience members' questions. I have one that I can read off my phone here, but if I can get someone to help me out with any of the ones that have already been submitted here tonight, if you could bring at least a couple of those up, maybe 3, and we'll try to get in as many questions as we can, given our time constraints. So right now, I want to bring up this question, and James, this will be you that'll field this one first. Someone is mentioning about that if you have a property and you want to use it for, say, short-term rentals, but with the looming fees that may be coming, increasing, and that sort of thing, how can you do that and give a preferential treatment to somebody who is here, is permanent in a sense of they've been here for a while, not just somebody that comes in and wants to buy something for an investment? How would you do that, or would you do anything? Is there any kind of a property tax referral that maybe you would recommend, or a discount for seniors to keep them living here so they don't have to move out?
Well, again, I'd look to the community for solutions and think that the most likely route to finding a successful solution is through the collective consciousness of everybody, offering solutions at the ballot box for people to vote on and implementing what they think is going to work best. You know, one idea I heard while circulating the housing petition was to regulate differently based on the number of homes in a person's portfolio. So somebody owns 2 homes, they're regulated differently than somebody who owns 4 or 5 homes. I like that idea. I don't know what other people think about it, but it seems kind of reasonable. The Frisco housing petition was for single-family homes only, and would require to do short-term rental in a single-family home that the owner reside there. That made sense to me. It's done in other municipalities. 10, 15 years ago, we incentivized high-density development financially. So it seems reasonable to zone high-density development as property where you can do short-term rental, and single-family homes as property that's meant for people to live in. But ultimately, we have the excise tax coming up. I had planned to vote yes on that, but somebody brought up to me recently that could actually hurt people that are subsidizing a second home, while people operating a commercial enterprise are just writing it off as a cost of doing business. So it's a pretty complicated issue with a lot of nuance, and I think the best thing we can do is offer solutions to the residents, let them vote on it, and then implement those solutions.
Very quickly, James, would you be in favor of a license cap?
Again, I would want to see the...
Yes or no?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think so.
Thank
I'd have to consider it, though.
Joe, once again, the question is for short-term rentals in the county. For people that actually own here, live here, whether it's doesn't have to be 365 days a year, but maybe they come up enough and they're part of the community, should they get a little bit more of a preferential treatment, maybe a property tax deferral or a discount, especially if they're seniors? And would you be in favor of a license cap?
I would say yes to both of those. I have friends who have parents that have a home up here, and they come up, majority of the year, and to offer them, preferential treatment as senior citizens and potentially offer them some sort of tax break, I think is worth it, because they're not looking to turn a huge profit. They're not buying these places to have or to create a small enterprise. They're buying it because this is where they want to be, for part or majority of the year.
All right, thank you, Joe. Elizabeth, same question, dealing with short-term rentals. There are different types of short-term rentals. Would you be in favor of property tax deferral or discount, especially for seniors, versus the people who are just buying property to never live here but using it as an investment? And would you be in favor of a license cap in Frisco?
I would definitely say yes to preferential treatment, especially if the particular person has lived here for a long time. And I think I'm understanding the question right, like someone that owns a home that also wants to short-term rent their home, right?
Correct.
Yeah, I would definitely say, especially if you've owned a home in Frisco for a long time, that's a good idea. As far as a license cap, it's like, gosh, can we collect some data, do some study to figure out how many licenses are appropriate for our community and put it there, at least until we figure out how to get more workforce folks into at least some seasonal rentals. Because like I pay a lot of commercial property tax, but I've had to limit my operational hours, like by 20 hours a week. So I'm kind of suffering a little bit too in that tax world. So I don't know, that would be a cool thing to collaborate on, but as far as the preferential treatment, I would say for sure.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Andy, certainly an in-depth question dealing with short-term rentals here in Frisco. Would you be in favor of a license cap, and what do you think about property tax deferral discount type thing for seniors and someone who has a home here that does live here? Maybe it's their second home, but would they get preferential treatment if they did some short-term rentals versus someone who really doesn't live here and they're just using it as an investment?
Now, to be clear, is this also potentially to try to turn short-term rentals into long-term rentals? Is this part of this question?
It could be.
Right? Okay.
So feel free to answer.
Sure. So this is actually a program that we're doing in part of Housing Helps 2.0. We're using 5A funds, and if any homeowner in Frisco wants to go long-term instead of short-term, we're subsidizing some of that, right? The program is not dialed completely. I know there's issues. I know people have a tough time actually wading their way through that, but we're working on it and we're trying to do that. Preferential treatment for any particular class or person, not necessarily, but I do believe that short-term rentals are entirely a business proposition, and they should be taxed as such, right? And so, and they're not, right, as Airbnb and VRBO. They don't pay commercial tax as the hotels do, right? So personally, that's why I was in favor of putting the excise tax to the people, and that money is going to go directly to workforce housing. On a short-term rental cap, that's a tricky one, and to be fair, like James didn't get to say, I would say probably no on a short-term cap without going any further. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. David, what are your thoughts in this matter with short-term rentals? Are you in favor of a license cap? And what about preferential, maybe tax deferral or a discount for seniors, or versus someone who's just buying property as an investment and doesn't even live here at all?
So I'll answer in reverse order. Yes, preferential treatment. There are teachers and city employees who, for the holidays, could go visit family members in other states and help supplement the cost of their housing here by short-term renting. So I think there is a threshold to be negotiated as to what that is. But yes, If you're a teacher, you're a fireman, you're a policeman, and others, and living here primarily, but doing that to help supplement, I support that. I also, like Andy said, those who are renting short-term rentals predominantly as investment properties, that's a commercial enterprise, needs to pay commercial tax. If I tried to convert my house into a restaurant, one, it wouldn't be allowed, but even if it is, they better damn well make sure I'm meeting all the codes and doing everything that a commercial restaurant on Main Street does. So I think it's, short-term rental is a core element of our community. It doesn't go away, but we do have to manage it. To the second part of the question, the answer is yes. If we don't, then we continue to see the growth of short-term rental because it's very profitable, and reduction in full-time residents, and we become like some of the resort communities, which it's great, but that's not the town. So, thanks.
Okay, thank you, David. John, on this question of short-term rentals, what are your thoughts? And please include how you feel about a license cap.
Having moved here recently, I never realized how contentious an issue could be. Short-term rentals, boy, you fall on one side or the other and you can get in trouble real fast. I'm a market solution guy. I come from a business background. If you want to control behavior in the market, you work within the market. You create incentives to convert short-term rentals into long-term rentals. They have a product. It is a prime product, and they know it. We have to incentivize them out of wanting to be a short-term rental. And you do that through, tax breaks and other incentives that you can create an environment that it makes it less palatable to do a short-term rental. I've got real experience with short-term rentals. I've got one right above my condo. The nuisance factor is off the charts. There's a certain aspect to our community that suffers because of short-term rentals, and I get that. We have more short-term rentals because no one else has anywhere to go when they come to visit. And we were able to survive the volume of people and tourists coming through here by not putting in giant hotels because we had short-term rentals. So there are some big benefits, but I'd like to solve it in the market. Incentives, get them into long-term rental. You can co-op with workforce housing and supplement that. So that's how I would look at short-term rentals. As far as caps, once again, it's the government's role to help facilitate business and create incentives for direction and planning without taxing, without attacking one segment of the market. And caps are government putting their hands in the middle of business where they should. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Lisa, same question about short-term rentals, and are you in favor of a license cap, and do you think short-term rentals should be getting preferential treatment to people that have more of a stake in the community, as in living here, versus people that just have investments?
So it's so interesting to listen to everybody talk, and that's one of the things that I'm so interested in why I'm running, right? To learn from, I'm going to say from people like Andy right now, because he's got the experience in town council, what's allowed and what's not allowed and all of these things. I think, yes, a cap on how many short-term rentals there can be, because otherwise it's going to take over our town. It's going to completely change our town. Busing people in from other towns to work here changes our community completely, and I love our community, and I want to keep it that way. Giving preferential treatment to people who have multiple homes, I think that they're already privileged to have multiple homes, and I don't know that they deserve preferential treatment. The idea of people who work here full times, like teachers and people who want to supplement going, they go on vacation and they Airbnb or VRBO or whatever short-term rental for that time period, I'm all in favor of that. Our people here work really, really hard to be able to work here. I think it's a hard thing to monitor, and I'm anxious to be part of the system to be able to learn how that all happens, how we're able to monitor. Are you working here? Are you living here? Are you here mostly full-time and just doing this a little bit of the time? Or are you somebody who just comes, you know, once or twice during the year and you short-term rental the rest of the time? I think that's quite a job to monitor all of that, and I don't know that that's possible. So if I have to just answer preferential treatment or no, I'm going to say no.
All right, thank you very much, Lisa. That wraps up our 5th question. And my apologies to James. I know you wanted to expand on the license cap thing, but folks, this is an opportunity for you to approach James after this candidate forum is over
Well,
and
my
give him
friends call
some
me
extra
Hayes.
thoughts on that. All right, this is just a basic snapshot of your candidates, and they are under time constraints here, so my apologies for throwing that in at the last second, James. But please, if you want to know more, do ask him after the forum. As we move on to our next question, this one will be Joe. You'll start this one. How have you personally contributed to the local economic and social success of Frisco?
Oh man, that's a pretty loaded question. I would say, like, from a worker's perspective, you know, I'm not always the most hospitable individual, and that's something that personally I'm working on. But, you know, as a person who deals with customers, you know, with people coming in and out of not only the state, not only the county, but the country, you know, I try to, you know, promote Frisco. You know, go to next page, go to Rocky Mountain Coffee Roasters, you know, walk down Main Street. You know, if you're coming in to get, you know, a beer or food, park your car, you know, see what Frisco has to offer. You know, really envelop yourself in the town and see why people stay here and why people love to come back year after year. And
Okay, thank you, Joe. Elizabeth, how have you personally contributed to the local economic and social success of Frisco?
So I've been here 26 years, and I've worked all of the service jobs. I have met so many amazing people through all of my weird jobs. Like, everywhere I go, I can meet people and make friends. I have a couple of older people that I just go to their house and help them fold sheets or whatever they need. Like, I make myself available, I guess, not just in an economic way, but in a relationship way with everybody that I meet. And my personal relationships have meant everything to me in this community. So that's something that's super important to me. And economically, like, now I'm a business owner, I try to provide a great work environment. I try to keep my eye on my staff. I give them rides. We'll do whatever we can financially to help them through certain times. We try to be reasonably priced. We try to keep our doors open for as many hours a day as we can, because it's become like a workspace. Like, everybody likes to work there and bring their laptops, and we just want to have this community environment there. So yeah, I've been a seasonal flower girl for the town. I've worked at the museum. Like, I'm like a little emotional about just like the relationships I've made over all these years, and that's important to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Andy, how have you personally contributed to the local economic and social success of Frisco?
It's a great question, and I would say I'm wholly invested in this town. I've helped friends build their businesses from nothing. I patronize all of those businesses. My civic service, I think, speaks for itself. I was on planning commission before being on council, in my past career, I've built a lot of Main Street, and I've built a lot of the homes in town, and I think it's just so important to me that we make it possible for other people to live here as well, and for other people to be able to enjoy the things that we've been able to enjoy. And so, probably my civic service at this point is where I've landed in order to do so. Thanks.
Thank you, Andy. Dave, how have you personally contributed to the local economic and social?
So I've really adopted the shop local mentality. The furniture here for this event donated or lent to us by iFurnish. I have thousands of dollars of iFurnish. I have books. I have coffee. I don't drink coffee. My wife drinks coffee. I go and get coffee there. I walk to town 3 or 4 mornings a week to get breakfast. I carry it out, but I go, it's important. My wife and I like to eat out probably 2 or 3 nights a week. And so when I just go through the inventory of my economic contributions, they've been rather significant. I like to spend local with the friends and family and acquaintances in this town. So that's what I'd say is I don't want to stop and measure it. I actually did. I eat at Butterhorn sometimes in the morning, and when I add up how much, because they have a rewards program, man, oh man, I swear I must be their best customer. For those who are familiar with the old TV show Cheers, I walk in, Norm, David. Anyways, that's where I believe we all can contribute is shop local. And I'm a poster child of that. Thank you.
Thank you, David. John, how have you personally contributed to the local economic and social success of Frisco?
Well, becoming a new resident in the last couple of years, I'd like to say that I've done more, but uprooting my whole life and moving everything here, opening a business locally and investing for the long term, and standing up here on stage and running for office and trying to make a positive impact. That's the best I could do in 2 years. I could probably do a whole lot more if I lived here longer. And then that begs the question, how do you know if you're a local? How long do you have to live here to be a local? I got 2 cracked windshields. I'm a local. I look forward to doing more. I want to get involved with the community for volunteer services. I think if there's a big drive in the first year after being elected, we can increase the participation from everybody, and we can create an opportunity for everybody to feel, fulfilled in their civic obligations. So I'm going to do more, but if I get in, we're going to work real hard. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Lisa, how have you personally contributed to the local economic and social success of Frisco?
So I've been here almost 10 years. It's a little bit hard for me to separate, because you're saying personally, and it's hard for me to separate myself from my business because that's where my husband and I give. We give through the business. We have connections with the school system. We are sponsors of the Rotary. I'm a member of the Chamber of Commerce. I'm glad the children left the room. My husband is the Easter Bunny, and I am his chaperone. We always shop local. And when we put out signs at our store that say shop local, we don't just mean shop local with us. We mean shop local with all of Frisco, all of independently owned businesses in Frisco. And then there's this. This is the next step for me as far as how I can give back and contribute to this community.
Thank you, Lisa. And finally, James. I think James is the last one to get this question. You haven't had it yet, have you, Joe? You have. Okay, then it is James. James, how have you personally contributed to the local economic and social success of Frisco?
Oh, well, my name is James Hayes Walsh. Most people know me as Hayes. A lot of people know me as the guy that rides his bike around town carrying a dog. I don't have a car. I'm a Frisco guy. Like, I don't really leave Frisco that much. I loiter. Lisa will tell you about that. Buy a lot of books from her store because I loiter there so much. But yeah, I'm a property manager. I'm the first point of contact. I manage 2 HOAs, 45 units, where I'm the first point of contact for those ownership groups. I help them hold it all together. I did the Frisco housing petition, spent about 80 hours going door to door collecting signatures, discussing housing issues with people and getting their opinions. Spent hundreds of hours in discussion beyond that. The town currently has a request for proposal out for a 5-year strategic art plan. I'm working with a company called the Walls Project that has an office in New Orleans and Dallas. They just opened an office recently in Denver. We're working together. We're going to be submitting a proposal for that 5-year strategic art plan. What I get out of living in Frisco is having meaningful relationships with people. The owners of the units I manage, Lisa, Elizabeth, the business owners, the people I see on the street, waving at people, knowing their names, calling. When I call a mechanical company because I need their help on a boiler, I know the people that work there, and that's how I contribute is being part of the community.
Thank you, James. And moving on to our next question, Elizabeth. What are you looking for in a new town manager, and how would you plan on keeping that town manager?
Okay, what I'm looking for in a town manager, I don't know, somebody that's pretty innovative and visionary. Like, I think as a community, we're at a weird point where we can go in a lot of different directions with a lot of different things. And so hopefully we could find someone that's able to help us collaborate, but also to help us find the right actions or the right people to help us pursue the things that we want to do as a town council. Someone that supports our, every town employee, that creates working for the town an enjoyable and awesome experience, like forever, somebody that really knows mountain town communities. I thought for a minute, like, what if we got someone from but then we got the guy from Florida and, that didn't work out so well. So, hopefully somebody that can understand the unique dynamics of our community in all aspects, from, children to older people to, business owners, to property managers and, workforce, the people that are working, in the restaurants and plowing our streets. And I forgot the second part of the question. Oh, how would I keep them? Geez, I don't know. I'm gonna have to ask people like Andy what to do. I don't know what it would take. I don't know what it would take to keep, because Nancy was pretty amazing. Like, even as a citizen, she was a great mentor to me. So if she went away, I don't know. I don't know. I would have to get help with that, I think.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Andy, what are you looking for in a new town manager, and how would you plan to try and keep that new town manager?
Good question. I've been on council now for 2 years, and we've seen 3 town managers basically at this point. Nancy was incredible. She was a mentor to me as I came in, and I've never been in this realm, and she definitely guided me through that. And thank you, Gary, for hiring her. Appreciate that. But unfortunately, life changes and people do other things. The town manager position is, to echo what I said in the Daily News, it's wholly important. The town manager is the connection between staff and the council. The town manager is the leader to enact the direction that the council gives to staff. It's up to the town manager to make sure it all happens. So, a really important part of this is that they're capable of relating to and working with and motivating staff. That's a big one. That's really important. They also have a special individual relationship with council. And it's up to the town manager to extrapolate the information that the council is giving or needs to give, because in a lot of cases we might not give the right direction until the town manager forces that out of us, and then hopefully truly motivates staff to work together. And this is a dynamic leader. It's a difficult position. It's not the easiest thing. And thank you. I'm out of time. That's all I'm going to say.
Thank you, Andy. David, what are you looking for in a new town manager, and how would you keep that town manager?
All right. What I'm looking for is first leadership. Leadership is a multiplier. When you're an inspirational leader, it multiplies the effect that they can have on the city, the operations, and everything. It's about developing the resources. We have wonderful employees, wonderful department leads, but we want to make sure we continue to develop them, encourage them in that. Two is experience. It's nice to have some experience, understand things that work, things that don't work. Willing to try things, want that, but having some experience is valuable. This next one's, I don't know the right words to use, but keeps their ego in check. There are things in this community that aren't broken, so I don't need a town manager going fixing something that isn't broken. What they need to do is say, you know what, have an aptitude to understand the areas where they can invest, where they can have a meaningful impact and do things better, and understand the areas where things are run well, let's let it be. And then the last bit, there's two effects to keeping them. One is finding somebody who wants to invest and be here. And the second is employment contracts can be designed to incent people to stay. And there's no reason that we don't look at that. Bonuses over multiple years, that type of thing. So we should make use of all mechanisms possible, but finding the right person's key.
Thank you, David. John, what would you be looking for in a new town manager, and once finding it, how would you retain that town manager?
That's an excellent question. The town council is going to be made up of 2 new people, maybe 3, and a new town manager at the same time. If we don't have chemistry between town council and the new town manager, boy, we're going to be spinning our wheels. Leadership is probably one of the top qualities, but I look for servant leaders. Somebody that came up from the ground up, and they spend their whole time educating everyone around them and motivating them. Nancy was an excellent servant leader, led by example. The recruitment effort that we're going through right now needs to be extreme. We need to have incentives for this person, like you said, to create an opportunity for them to want to stay in the long term. Whether that's housing, serious recruitment efforts. Because the kind of quality person we need to handle the problems for the future of Frisco, we need to be looking at some really big dogs. We need some good people to come in here. And the only way to create incentive for those folks to want to join our community is, 1, to make them a part of the community, and 2, create enough financial incentive that they want to stay and they want to raise their family and bring the rest of their family here. The other aspect to a new town manager would be the total effort to get feedback from all of the employees of the city, of the town. Having their input on who they want to see as a town manager is probably more important than my input on whether they're a good town manager or a prospect. They know what they need, and they know what kind of town manager they want to have. We need their input. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Lisa, what would you be looking for in a new town manager, and what would you do to retain that town manager?
So I think I'm going to agree basically with what everybody has said. First, with Elizabeth, we are at a pivotal moment, and I think it's really important to get the right person. I'd like to see somebody who understands, preferably who's even worked in a mountain resort town before, but definitely that understands what the culture is like here, because I think it's unlike most other places. And if we, at the very least, to get somebody who has worked in a resort town, even if it's not a mountain resort town, to understand the ebb and flow of the town and just what it's like to live in a place that, you know, we only have several thousand full-time residents, but we go up to tens of thousands of people at certain parts of the year. And I think that's a huge challenge and not one that a lot of other towns have to deal with. And so I think somebody who has that kind of experience would really be necessary. And I think we go back to all of the other things, incentivizing them to stay, definitely to have housing for them, to make it economically feasible for them to stay here and to raise their family and be part of the community.
Thank you, Lisa. James, what would you be looking for in a new town manager, and what would you do to try and retain that manager?
I'd be looking for somebody from high country, maybe not specifically Summit County, but the high mountain country. This area poses unique challenges for living here, so I want to start off with somebody that already knows what they're getting into. Secondly, I don't think we need an outside consulting firm that we're paying $40,000, $50,000 to go find us a town manager that has specific experience. A lack of experience does not equal a lack of capability. I'm pretty confident that there's someone out there who would want that job, who is totally capable and has other life experiences, business experiences that make them qualified to do the job. You could then take that money that we're not spending on a consulting firm and, kind of like David said, tie it into the back end of a contract and pay them out more after a 5-year period.
Thank you, James. Joe, what would you be looking for in a new town manager, and how would you retain them?
So for a new town manager, ultimately I would be looking for someone who really wants to immerse themselves in Frisco culture and what it is to be here. And, a big part of that is, finding someone who wants it to be their end goal, not a pit stop on the way to somewhere bigger or what they might deem as better. And, as far as like offering incentives, you can say what you want, but money speaks over everything. And, housing, pay, tying in what they said, offering money at the back end of a contract, that's how you get someone to be here. Because, a person can want to be here all they want, but if there's no pay and no housing opportunities, then the opportunity there is just going to go somewhere else.
Thank you, Joe. And looking at our time, we're doing very well on time here. I do want to bring up one more question for everyone, and this should be hopefully very short responses, but one of the things that I hear a lot of is Main Street and the Promenade. And I'd like to get your thoughts on what you think of Promenade, bringing it back or not bringing it back, and why. So, Andy, I believe we're coming around to you again.
Sure, I'm happy to. If anybody read the newspaper, I'm sure you already heard most of this stuff. But, bottom line is we did the Promenade to help the businesses with the restrictions during the pandemic. That was it. Couldn't go inside their store, but you could sit on the sidewalk, right? It turned out to be fun and great, and everybody had a great time. And it was essentially like doing an event instead of for people outside of town. It was an event for the businesses and the people in town. In the end, after 2 years, I heard a lot from the businesses that were not inside the promenade, and they absolutely were hurting. And they felt that a lot of their revenue shifted to the promenade. And if you look at the tax dollars, there was essentially about a 12% difference of being in and being outside the promenade. You know, it was a great time and it was fun, but I do believe we need the infrastructure to support it all around Granite and Galena Streets. You know, if we were going to make this like Pearl Street Mall or something, we have a lot to do in order to be able to get there. So at this point, I'm definitely a no on the promenade, and it's really just in support of the businesses. You know, everybody talks about the 85% of people who were in favor. That was just because we walked down the street and asked everybody on the street if they liked it, and that was 85%. It wasn't necessarily the businesses. Businesses were a third, and a third in do it, don't do it, and I don't care. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. And David, what are your thoughts on the promenade? Yay or nay, and why?
So this is not going to be a short answer. I know that's what you want. This one's difficult for me because I personally very much enjoyed the promenade. My wife very much wants not to have the promenade. She likes pulling up in front of the shops to be able to go in and quickly buy something, etc. And as Andy said, when you look at the details around the tax receipts, and it was out there, was covered in council at a macro level, there was a definite 12% enhancement inside the promenade. I think we need to treat all our businesses equally. So while I personally like it and I personally enjoyed the ability to meet with the people and so forth, I think Promenade had its time, was very successful, but it's time now to return back to normal, treat all our businesses equally, and incent them equally. And, you know, COVID's over.
Thank you, David. John, your thoughts on the promenade?
I, like a lot of people in town, enjoy the promenade personally. Being an elected official of the people, I would have to defer to the businesses. It's a cost-benefit analysis to me. Does it make sense to put the promenade in for the businesses that hurt or suffer or benefit from it? Can we do it differently in the future to maybe make it more successful for the businesses? Make it event-driven, perhaps? Not just the promenade, but other activities going on in town that bring in the volume, that make up for the losses? I don't know. I mean, that's a good question. I'd love to sit in work group meetings with the local businesses and explore that. But if it doesn't make business sense to do it, then we need to reconsider not doing it. I enjoyed it personally. I thought it was great, but I don't own a business downtown. So I would defer to the businesses for the decision on that one. Thank you.
Very good, John. Thank you. Lisa, your thoughts on the promenade?
So I have a lot of thoughts on the promenade, as most people here probably know. Obviously, the promenade was enjoyable for so many people. I am curious, and I don't know, but I'm curious what those tax dollars, what those percentages were for before the promenade. I am incredibly fortunate to have a business on the sunny side of the street, on the block, or one of the 2 blocks that gets the most foot traffic. I don't know that taking away the promenade is going to change that disparity in sales between my business and businesses that were outside of the promenade, because it's location, 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 right? And I just don't know. I don't know. I would like to see those numbers and to know if the promenade made a difference in the income, or if that's just the way that it is because of the location. The promenade was encompassing the most trafficked part of Main Street to begin with. So I would like to see those numbers of before and this coming summer, because we won't have the promenade. But it is about the numbers in the end, and I would just like to see the correct comparisons and not just look at those 2 years that we had it and see what the disparity was between the businesses inside and outside.
Thank you, Lisa. James, your thoughts on the promenade?
First of all, this is an issue that should be on this ballot this coming election, that the residents would have an opportunity to vote on, and that's what we should have done. There was a survey, 85% of people wanted it. Annie points to that it's not objective. That's why it should have been on the ballot, so that we have an objective metric of what the people wanted implemented. Now, when the first year the promenade happened, it was actually the businesses on the inside that were concerned they were going to lose revenue. As it turned out, the promenade sucked in the business. So the second year, the concern came from businesses on the outside. To me, that's proof of concept and a reason to expand the promenade, not a reason to get rid of it. The promenade gave our town an identity as uniquely livable. It made it pedestrian first, safer for families riding around on their bikes, safer for people walking around. It made it easier to access the community that's here and develop meaningful relationships. And it could be the foundation of a public transit system that de-incentivizes using cars. Like talking about putting that parking garage down where the freeway is at the end of Main Street, having a trolley that runs through the promenade. Now, it definitely could have been executed better. We need to allow emergency vehicles to access it. You know, there needs to be some modifications. But you could have a whole public transportation system rooted in the promenade that gives our town an identity and ups property value and really makes it the most desirable place to live in Summit County. And I think it's a big miss to not allow the people a voice on this and proceed as our community wants to proceed.
Thank you, James. Joe, what are your thoughts on the promenade?
From a personal perspective, I really enjoyed the promenade. You know, it was almost reminiscent of what it was like to visit small towns when I was younger. And, you know, when it was first erected here, you know, like walking it was amazing. You know, it was watching kids play, you know, whether it be putt-putt golf or going in front of the art studio, you know, watching people ride their bikes through and hang out in the streets and talk. And, you know, I think it really kind of brought back what it meant to be in a community, you know, and not just, you know, being confined to the sidewalks, so to speak, you know, and like, much like Hayes said, I do believe that it could have been executed better. So on a micro level, I really enjoyed it, so I would have liked for it to stay. But on a macro level, if it could be, you know, revamped and handled better, then absolutely I would love for it to stay.
Thank you, Joe. And Elizabeth, your thoughts on the promenade?
My thoughts. Well, my business was inside of the promenade, and I think it was an excellent idea for when, you know, COVID lockdowns and all kinds of businesses were trying to figure out how they were going to still offer things to customers. I think it was such a great idea. However, you know, talking with people that live in town and other businesses on either end of the promenade, you know, some businesses say they lost money, but one of the biggest things was parking and traffic flow and people that lived on side streets. Like, it became almost dangerous for some people. I think that, like, if you're a business owner on Main Street, you're already investing a lot into your business plan. And I think that if you weren't creating, you know, if your business plan didn't include the promenade, I mean, that's just, to me, it seems a little unfair if you've been running these businesses for years and then all of a sudden your direct traffic flow is totally shifted. And then I'm going to be honest, like, I have 3 people leaving this spring at my own business, and I'm stressed out. Like, if the promenade was coming, I have anxiety. Like, how are we going to staff it? Like, what are we going to do? And I've heard that from at least one other restaurant owner who, you know, it adds a lot of tables and space. And for me, it did bring in a lot of traffic, but it's almost too much. Like we can't handle sometimes like the flow. So I would say let Main Street go and flow as it does and let it be open. So no to the promenade.
Thank you, Elizabeth. And that wraps up our questions for this evening on the candidate forum here tonight for the Town of Frisco. Everyone now has 2 minutes for closing statements. And 2 minutes, we'll begin with you, David.
All right. Throughout this, we've had a series of questions, the newspaper, all the different surveys. What would you do? This is a council of 7. To do anything, it requires 3 others and myself, if I was so fortunate to be elected. So it isn't what I would do, it's what actions would I take to collaborate and continue what I believe is a positive direction for Frisco. I don't think we're headed in a negative direction. There's always issues to fix. It doesn't matter if you own a house, there's some stuff to fix. You're in a town, there are things that just come up that need to be addressed. We've talked a lot about them this evening, but I think Frisco's been, in general, heading in the right direction. There are some areas where we need to apply some attention. I think we need to make sure we don't lose sight of delivering on the core services that we take for granted. And it's too easy to worry and think about the next thing and ignore investments. A good example is the police station that was a department housing area that was mentioned. It's woefully out of date. It's inadequate for the staff. So I think we need to make sure we continue to do those types of things. And then I would conclude with this. I think Frisco needs to lead more than we have been doing. We have followed a lot of the surrounding communities, and I think Frisco should take a more active leadership role. Thank you.
Thank you, David. John, your closing statement.
When I thought about the closing statement, I thought about regurgitating my resume, but I think I'll tell a story instead. I got married a month ago to a wonderful woman, Donna Lynn. I love you very much. We decided to go to Whitefish, Montana for a honeymoon. Whitefish is a great little town. This is not one of those good stories. We head out, we get in the rental car, we're headed to the hotel. It rains the whole time. Wonderful little town, but it is gray and it's raining. We get to the room, there's no microwave. The TV on the wall is about the smallest thing I've ever seen. The coffee shop downstairs doesn't take credit cards. We enjoyed ourselves and had the best time possible. And on our way out of town, I had a little gift that I purchased for Donna, a little corkscrew that was taken by TSA because, of course, I'm going to take over the plane and stab somebody. And the plane was delayed by an hour because of mechanical issues. There are no TVs on the plane, so there's no movie on the way home. We get to Denver, we get in our car, we're on our way back to Frisco. And you have that feeling, man, I'm home. I'm almost home. I just got to go through the pass. We turn on the radio, and then we get a cold slap in the face. I feel embarrassed when I realize the plight of the Ukrainian people right now and my complaints. I fell into the trap of American, privilege, and I felt embarrassed. And then I started thinking about Frisco and the problems we face, and it started giving me a sense of confidence. We can solve these problems. It's not difficult to do it. With perspective like that, we shouldn't have a problem. At the end of the day, I'm an Army brat, engineer, handyman, father. I'm a mentor and a coach. But with your help, I'll be one of the new Frisco Town Council members.
Thank you very much, John. Lisa, you have 2 minutes for a closing statement.
So before I moved here, almost 10 years ago, we moved here, and you have probably read this in the paper, and I think that you mentioned it earlier. I was a high school English teacher, and I worked on committees when I was a high school English teacher, obviously worked with administration and with parents, and the learning that I do from listening to other people, I enjoy so much. And that is, quite frankly, what I'm most excited about with this prospect, is being able to be surrounded by people who have a lot of innovative ideas, being able to share my ideas, learning from the community and from the people that I would work with, and coming up with great solutions for the issues that we have in our society here in Frisco. And I just look forward to that opportunity to be able to listen and to learn and to help this town grow in a positive direction and keep this community a community the way that we've all enjoyed it being all these years.
Thank you, Lisa. James, you have 2 minutes for your closing statement.
I don't have much of an agenda. I want to see people in this town offered a meaningful mechanism of participation in policy making. Whether it is or not, it doesn't feel meaningful to show up to a council meeting, get a hard 3 minutes to talk, get no response, no email, no thank you letter. People have become totally disengaged because they don't feel like they're part of the process. They're not offered solutions on the ballot to vote on directly, and it leads to them not voting at all. We have a very low voter turnout. So my whole hope is to increase participation from our community, bring people into the process, make them feel like they have an opportunity to have their voice heard, and contribute to our policy making. And then I want to change the culture and practices of council from thinking that 6 or 7 people are going to come up with solutions that are successful, and understand that the best solutions come from the people who've lived in this community. And if we give them the opportunity to participate, and we give them the opportunity to make their voice heard, that is by far our best chance for a successful future.
Thank you, James, or Hayes. Joe, you have 2 minutes for your closing statement.
Honestly, I really want to take the time to thank not only all of you all for being here, but for all of the support that everyone on the stage has received. We all have different driving forces, to push us to be up here. And I can't thank, the people who have been, coaching me and talking to me, and being able to sit down with Andy, being able to sit down with, Hunter, being able to talk to, not only town council members and the mayor, but people from all professions and all walks of lives. And, being able to see, what issues that everyone is facing, and, hearing people's voices. And, I don't have all the answers, and I will never claim to, but I think being able to sit down and listen to people and, take what it is that they're saying in and factor that into our decision making is really important. And that's something that's really important to me. There are a lot of younger people in this town who feel that their voices aren't being heard, that they're just being ignored. And I'm sure there are a lot of people across the board that feel that way. And, I want to sit down with as many people as I can, take in as much as I can, and learn and try to be the best representative that I can for this town. And, I want Frisco to be the best version of itself. And, I want to be a part of that, whether that be on the town council or not. I prefer to be on the town council, but, that's just me. Again, I thank you all for being here, and that's my time.
Thank you, Joe. Elizabeth, 2 minutes for your closing statement.
Closing statement. I've built my entire life here. I, moved here in my early 20s, just one more season. And, in the time that I've been here, I've been able to get 3 academic degrees, get married, have children, buy a little deed-restricted home, and then own a business on Main Street, Frisco. And it means everything to me. This is like my life's work. I don't have I don't know. I'm a worker bee. I'm the person that goes out and intermingles with everybody, and I learn things about people, and I would love to be able to do that and bring it back to town council and be like, you know what I heard over here, and this person feels that way, so that I can collect as much information as I can from our community. And I already do that, you know, and I would like to start learning how to share that and make it useful for our future town endeavors. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. And finally, to wrap up the closing statements, our incumbent, Andy Held. Andy, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you all, really, because it's important that this is actually a race. In the past, there's been a number of different elections that haven't been races, and people just assume empty positions because not that many people are passionate or at least ready to stand up and show it. And, you know, these people, we all are, and I truly appreciate that. So thanks. You know, and this is a council-run government. There are 7 people that direct the town. We're a small town, we're relatively wealthy, we're in good position, we're a little bubble, right? But there are still, it's a machine, it's a big machine that has to keep operating, and there's a number of things that we have to do in order to keep it going, as well as plan for the future, as well as plan for the influx of people coming in the future. So, you know, aside from my passion that puts me here, you know, we will be representatives, or whoever gets elected will be your representatives, and I hope I've you know, represented well. And you know, if I don't know you, I'd be happy to get to know you. And I am on Main Street almost every single day, and you know, I am always available. And anytime anybody saw me, I hope you would come over and you know, give me an earful. I want to hear it all, good or bad. And I hope that, you know, I've represented you well. And if you see fit to re-elect me, then I will do my best. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. And ladies and gentlemen, these are your candidates for town council, 3 open seats. As a Colorado native and having lived in Summit County for over 15 years, I think no matter who you choose to fill those seats, you'll be in good hands here. I want to thank all of you for coming up and coming out tonight and being part of this process. We love you for that, because this is what it's all about. Go ahead, give yourselves a hand, give your candidates a hand. This is what it's about here at the local level. And I would encourage you to talk to your candidates. If you want more information from somebody, please talk to them after this forum is over, which will be in about a minute. So please hang around if you'd like, talk to your candidates, ask a question that maybe wasn't asked. This is your town, this is your future. Thank you again.